Hello everyone, my name is Pran and I will be your MC for today's session. I would like to welcome everyone to the International Renewable Energy Asia Conference 2021 or RE Asia Conference. This year, the conference is coming with the theme, Clean Energy Transitions for Post-COVID Resilience in ASEAN. You are now watching a session number 3, which will be discussed about the bio, circular, and green economy for sustainable development. These sessions feature the latest developments of bioenergy, the future outlook, and the sustainability issues related to bioenergy, delivered by biomass and waste experts from Europe and Thailand. Before we start, I would like to inform you about the platform. First, all microphone and video of attendees is disabled for the whole sessions. If you wish to ask any questions to our speakers, please leave your question at the Q&A box at the bottom right corner. In case of a technical issue, or you hope to contact our staff, please send your request to the Help tab at the same location. At last, after the session ends, please give us some feedback by complete the survey at the survey icon on the screen. Without any further delay, I would like to introduce to the moderator of these sessions, Dr. Sunirat Fukuda, the head of Advanced Fuel Processing Laboratory or AFPL at the Deutsche Graduate School of Energy and Environment or JGC at King Mongkut's University of Technology, Thonburi. May I now pass the floor to the moderator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Khun Pran, and welcome all of you to the session number 3. Now we are in the session of bio, circular, and green economy for sustainable development. So this session will touch upon the bioenergy and biofuels, waste to energy, community-based power plants, sustainable bioeconomy, circular economy, and of course the sustainability issues. So, and we are honored to have the experts as the speaker for the sessions. We will have 4 experts. So they are from Europe as well as the Thailand. So as you all know, the bioenergy is and waste is also the one of the important renewable energy, and it can also contribute to the socio-economic impact of the people and of the countries. But now we must see how we can do it in sustainable ways. And today we will find out about their potential and how we can do it in the sustainable way. So now I would like to start with our first speaker. Our first speaker is Mr. Bharadwaj Kamaruru, the Executive Director of the World Bioenergy Association, which is the leading global association promoting the sustainable development of bioenergy. He has been leading the association for the past 3 years in executing activities, including publications, events, projects, and collaboration with the international partners. He initially joined the WBA in 2014 to lead the projects on bioenergy statistics after graduating with a Master of Science degree in Sustainable Energy Systems. Mr. Kamaruru has a background in chemical engineering, and interests include life cycle assessment, data analysis, and sustainability. And the topic of his presentation today is current global development of bioenergy sector and future outlook, as well as opportunity. So Mr. Kamaruru, please.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Professor Sunirat. Let me just share my screen and let me know if you can see it fine.
Yes, we can see it clearly.
Perfect. Good. So thanks again for the wonderful introduction, but also setting the scene for this panel. Thanks also to the team at Informa Markets for inviting the World Bioenergy Association to be a part of this very, very interesting and very timely panel. Better circumstances, I would hope to travel from Stockholm, where I'm located, to Thailand, but the situation is what it is. But we are happy that we could gather here kind of virtually and discuss some key important topics related to bioenergy, sustainability, and so on. So I've been tasked to talk briefly about, say, the global development of the bioenergy sector. So where are we right now in the bioenergy sector? Where do we need to go? What are the projections, and how can we get there? And I'm going to share some interesting examples from around the world, which might be interesting for the audience as well. So as pointed out, my name is Bharadwaj Kumamoru. I've been the executive director at the World Bioenergy Association for about 4 years now, but with the organization for more than 8 years. So a couple of slides on who the World Bioenergy Association is. We are a not-for-profit NGO based in Stockholm, and we were established in 2008, so about 13 years now. And the mission is to promote the sustainable development of bioenergy around the world. And key point is that we also support the business environment for bioenergy. The main idea when we set out in 2008 was to there's quite a few national, regional associations. There's quite a few associations pertaining to different sectors in bioenergy, but there was no umbrella organization for all of them around the world. As bioenergy slowly becomes a bit more from a traditional local use to a modern traded commodity, there was a need for a organization to kind of oversee the developments around the world, and that was the reason we were set up. And as a member-based organization, we've got members from around the world. These include companies, these include associations, but also researchers and individuals from all continents. And we try to cover all sectors of bioenergy. As you can see, that's kind of the clusters of where we get members from. Predominantly from Europe, because that's where we are located, but also that's where the development of bioenergy has been quite good. There's been a lot of advances in technology on solid, liquid, and gaseous bioenergy in Europe, and that's why also we have quite a few of them here. Basically, what we do, we publish fact sheets, we publish statistics reports, kind of increase awareness about bioenergy sector. I'll use some of this graphs from some of our statistics report in the presentation later on. I'll also talk about a fact sheet that we are developing, which is relevant to the work that we will be discussing today. We of course organize study trips and webinars as well. But what we are proud of and important is also to point out is a collaboration with international partners. So whether it's as an observer to the UNFCCC, to observer to the ARENA's Coalition for Action, with the main mission is to kind of advocate for bioenergy at these international forums, which we feel is quite important. Firstly, when I say bioenergy, sometimes people tend to equate bioenergy with, say, pellets or forests or agriculture or biogas. This I took from the International Energy Agency, which kind of gives the overview of the complexity of the bioenergy sector compared to, say, other renewables or other fossil technologies or energy sources. So as you can see, there's a multitude of feedstock, quite a few production pathways, and end users, including the use for transport, for heating, electricity, and materials. Of course, the contribution of each of them is not equal. For example, when you talk about feedstock, almost 80 to 85% of all bioenergy or the biomass used for energy comes from the forestry sector. That's in terms of whether it's wood fuel for cooking and heating in traditional, in emerging economies, to the use of, say, wood pellets in large-scale utilities. So the use varies, but the predominant contribution when you talk about feedstock is from the forestry sector. There's an increasing interest in the agriculture sector, but also municipal solid waste from around the world because of availability of resources and because of various other reasons. But another thing to point out is the versatility of the sector. So when you talk about say solar and wind, they're kind of limited in its contribution, that they can only limited to the contribution to the electricity sector. They can contribute a bit to the heating sector, but the advantage of the bioenergy sector is that it can meet the demands for all end use sectors, including heating, cooling, transport, but also materials, which is quite important. So it's a very complex energy system. There's a lot of developments happening. So I'll try to bring them all together in a few slides to say what's happening around the world. First, I usually, whenever I'm asked to give a presentation, I start with this with this graph basically, which shows where the global energy mix is right now, as quite obvious, the contribution from the fossil fuels is still dominant. About 80%, more than 80%, close to 80% comes from the fossil fuels. The renewable shares has been at about 18 to 19% now, which seems a lot, but considering that it has been the same since the start of the century, it hasn't moved much. Mainly because even though we keep hearing a lot about solar and wind penetration and so on, we have been increasing our energy consumption as well. So that means the share of renewables remain the same, which is quite unfortunate. And if we need to kind of move the needle or increase the share of renewables, there's a lot of drastic actions we need to take as a community. Another key point to highlight here is that bioenergy, which is again not quite clear, is the largest renewable energy source globally. It accounts for about 67 to 70% of all renewable energy consumption. And the key thing here is that most of it, almost 40 to 50% of it, is in the form of traditional use. So that's in terms of using fuel wood, using charcoal, in say 3-stone cook stoves and so on in Africa and Asia, which I think there is a consensus among the international community that this has to be phased out because it has a lot of issues with health and so on. But anyway, bioenergy, it's a big part of the energy mix right now. And as I was pointing out before, in terms of the contribution of different technologies to the end use sectors, it's important to note that the penetration of renewables is not the same for all end use sectors. So in terms of electricity, there's been good contribution that renewables have a share of about 26%, heating about 8%. When I say final consumption, this is direct use of energy in residential or commercial sectors, and that's about 21% contribution. Transport is woefully low, the lowest at 3.4%. But the key thing here to note is that most of the contribution of bioenergy till now has been in the heating sector, in the cooking and sector, but also in transport. As you can see, there are very limited options for other technologies, other renewable technologies to contribute. And that's where bioenergy comes in. It has a significant impact significant need for producing electricity. But what we feel moving forward is that combined with its capacity for producing sustainable heating, for cooking and for transport, are some of the sectors where bioenergy is most required. I'm not even talking about, say, industries and so on. So this is basically just energy. And another key thing to highlight is that heating accounts for more than 50% of all end users. We hear a lot about electricity, renewables penetrating electricity sector, or electrifying the heating and the transport sector. But the challenge is that the heating and sector itself consumes about 50% of all energy, transport about 30%. So we need to do a lot more in the heating and transport, and that's where bioenergy we feel comes in to the picture. Couple of slides on where the sector is in terms of different end users. In terms of electricity, bioenergy is the third largest renewable power producer after hydropower and wind. About 680 terawatt hours of dispatchable power was produced in 2019. That's mainly from a couple of big contributions from, say, sugarcane bagasse in Brazil and in India and so on, but also wood chips and pellets in consumption in the European Union, where EU has a big contribution in producing biopower. But we see a lot of developments in other parts of the world, for example, in Japan and South Korea, because of introduction of feed-in tariffs and certificates. There's a lot of demand for new modern biomass, which is mainly by wood pellets. but also in other Southeast Asian countries. Also say, for example, we've been tracking developments in China, in India, and so on, where there's a lot of resource available, but there are a lot of technology challenges in utilizing these agro residues. But there are good examples of bioenergy contributing in that area as well, which I'll point out later on. As I've said, bioenergy is the most promising technology for heating. There's a very few alternatives right now. And almost 96% of all heat that we see around the world in terms of renewable heat, 96% comes from biomass. There's a minimum contribution from geothermal and solar thermal, which should kind of remain the same. But so that's where the biggest opportunity challenge, but also the opportunity is for the bioenergy sector. And the EU has done quite well in producing heating, mainly from combined heat and power plants. Quite a few of them here that they've been able to efficiently utilize the biomass to produce both heat and power. And that's where we feel the role of bioenergy is. Briefly on liquid biofuels, as I've pointed out before, only 3% of the transport sector is renewable. In 2019, about 160 billion liters of biofuels were produced. I think it dropped to about 143 or 144 the first time ever last year in 2020 because of the pandemic. But it seems that the rate has picked up again this year as we slowly come out of lockdowns and so on. And bioethanol in among biofuels. Bioethanol is the largest biofuel, mainly corn ethanol from the US and sugarcane ethanol from Brazil. But we see there's quite a few interesting developments, mainly because of this focus on using other feedstock, whether it's used cooking oil or animal fats and so on. So, for example, in the Nordic countries, we see a lot of developments of HVO, the hydrogenated vegetable oil, which is also a form of renewable diesel. Cellulosic ethanol hasn't taken off as much as expected, but there's a good mix of fuels coming out of the fuel basket for biofuels. But as I pointed out, COVID had a big impact last year, on the sector as one of the hardest hits compared to other sectors like pellets or wood chips. Mainly because number one, the oil prices dropped so low that it was very hard to compete. And number two, because of lockdowns, nobody was using fuel anymore. So that impacted the sector. When we did a survey last year, which showed it impacted the sector quite a lot, and it's important for the governments around the world to support the biofuel industry so that this doesn't happen again. So that's where we are right now. You talk about the contribution of electricity, heating, and transport. So where do we need to go looking into the future? There's a lot of interesting news you might keep hearing about net zero by 2050, climate neutrality by 2050, and so on, based on recommendations from the IPCC, with the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is quite clear that we need to reduce to meet the targets of, say, limiting global warming to 1.5. We need to reduce emissions, I think, by 45% by 2030, and then go to negative emissions by 2050. And based on that, there are a couple of pathways in that, but also a couple of new reports which came out in the last couple of months, one from the International Energy Agency, one from the REA, the International Renewable Energy Agency, which show the various pathways we need to take to ensure that we meet those targets. And what we did, we sort of did a comparative analysis of these different scenarios to see where does bioenergy fit in. And we're still working on that. We're still developing a fact sheet on that, which will launch in the next couple of weeks. But a couple of things are quite clear. It's a consistent theme among all scenarios. Number one is that bioenergy is a very important role to play in its contribution to climate change mitigation. That it has that the energy supply from bioenergy should be increased. You keep hearing a lot about that we might not need bioenergy at all. Maybe not much you keep hearing in Thailand, but in the European Union, there's a big push saying we don't need bioenergy at all. But all these scenarios, which have been developed quite collaboratively, quite sure that we need a lot more bioenergy in the energy system to meet these demands for net zero energy system by 2050. And the contribution varies. For example, if I look at the International Energy Agency, I think the contribution is about by 2050 is about 110 exajoules from the current 50 exajoules, 55 exajoules. So about doubling the capacity, doubling the amount. Whereas like, when you look at IRENA, it's about 150 exajoules, so about 3 times as much bioenergy supply as we have right now by 2050. So it varies, but the lowest is at least is that we need to double. And considering the fact that most of the bioenergy we have right now is traditional, which has to go to zero, that means that the contribution from modern bioenergy sources need to triple going ahead into the future. So then we need a lot more biomass for energy. So we're still working on this fact sheet on comparing these scenarios to have some sort of a estimate as to how much bioenergy would be needed. So I think once that's available, it will be on our homepage. So as I've pointed out, energy supply kind of remains a constant among all scenarios, whereas the share of renewable increases to 67% from the current 10 to 12% of supply. Whereas the role of bioenergy, as I pointed out, increases 2 to 3 times in most of these scenarios. But the challenge is the scale up. Just as a comparison, in the last decade, so from 2010 to 2020, the increase of bioenergy has been about 6%. Whereas from 2020 to 2030, it has to increase by about 4 times as much as it has increased before, and even more when we talk about 2050. So there's no question that we need bioenergy, it's just that we need a lot more. And I've shared a couple of examples, very good examples happening from around the world. One on different scales as well. So for example, on one scale, you've got these large power utilities which have been utilizing coal before. For example, as you know, as some of you may know, the Drax biomass facility, Drax coal facility before, but now it's completely converted to biomass. And it produces about 14 terawatt hours of dispatchable renewable power, which is a very big shift in a few years, and a very good example of converting from coal to biomass. And it's not just switching fuel. When we do the switch, there's a lot of innovation happening in different aspects. Number one, for example, on BECCS. So they're one of the leading companies trialing BECCS, bioenergy carbon capture and storage at these facilities, because bioenergy offers that option, that it's not just climate change mitigation, it's not just replacing fossil fuels, but also capturing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and leading to negative emissions. So that's again a very good innovation which happens when we do these large scale conversions. Also innovations in sustainable sourcing of feedstock, because as Professor Sunil has pointed out, sustainability is important. So when we do on activities on such a large scale, there's a lot more focus on sustainability and responsible sourcing of feedstock. On the other end, there's another example of one of our members, actually both members, who it's a 7 megawatt facility which is producing steam. And this is not a coal to biomass, this is actually a gas to biomass technology. And it's it hasn't been done because of any subsidies or feed-in tariffs, but it is actually cheaper to utilize biomass than natural gas, and that's why the shift happened. So there's also an economic case for making this shift. It doesn't necessarily have to be a push from the government to make that change. In fact, one of the leading drivers was the beverage company had set a climate neutral target, and that kind of trickles down into these decisions at the local level. There's a few more examples, one in India where there's a lot of interest in utilizing paddy straw. For example, one in China, for example, that's a facility which is about it's a 550 megawatt facility which converted from coal to biomass to meet the demands for heat and steam for an automotive company, which was located right beside, I think it was Volkswagen. There's also another couple of examples in Mexico. For the sake of time, I'll not go through each of them, but the key point here is to say that developments are happening around the world on different scales. But there is a big challenge, and I want to highlight that a bit more, is there is an increased opposition. We see a lot more in the European Union. I don't know how much it is in other parts of the world, against utilizing bioenergy for energy at all. There are some sectors which are impacted more. There's a lot of focus on wood pellets and the US Southeast, for example, where, for example, technologies such as biogas have less of an impact, but it might impact the overall bioenergy sector. So that's a big challenge, and it's very, very important for the community to get together, and mainly, and when I say community, it's not just energy companies, it's forestry associations, it's farmers, it's landowners, it's scientists, academicians, and so on, to get on board to argue for sustainable bioenergy going ahead in the future, because this will have a significant impact in the future. So I'll just to highlight, there are a couple of important events coming up. There's of course the COP26 climate conference, where there's a lot of important decisions would be taken. So it's just a kind of a information to the audience to keep track of, and also the IPCC's the 6th assessment report, which will come out next year as well, which will have a big impact on the bioenergy sector going ahead. So just to conclude, I hope I haven't run over time. Just to conclude, bioenergy is playing already a critical role in helping reduce fossil fuel use, creating jobs, promoting local economic development, and so on. And all those pathways which we see by 2050 show that we need to increase bioenergy in all end-use sectors. But there is a major opposition to the use of bioenergy around the world, and there is a lot of crucial meetings and reports which are coming, which will impact the way we consume and use bioenergy. And it's very important as a kind of a takeaway from this long presentation, is that for the sector to collaborate more closely, whether it's producers, consumers, equipment manufacturers. So for people who are in Thailand, who are working in that sector, to get behind any of these national or regional trade associations and so on, to push and develop a good communication strategy to inform that bioenergy has an important role to play, and we need to do it in a good way possible. I think I'll stop there, and I guess the presentations will be shared later on, but I'll be staying around to answer questions during the panel discussions or anything which comes up during this session. But again, thank you again for the opportunity, and we look forward to a very interesting session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kamaru, for the very comprehensive presentation, full of details on the current status of biomass utilization in the world and success cases of switching from fossil fuels like coal or natural gas to biomass. And also, Mr. Kamaru also presented the great contribution of biomass among the different renewable energy technologies, both to the final energy consumption as well as the decarbonization for the net zero emission scenarios or climate neutrality. But the sustainability issues are also of concern, and one thing is that we have to stop the traditional use of the biomass, and increase the modern utilization of the biomass. And maybe in order to answer or to meet the climate neutrality by 2050, we have to triple the biomass. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's thank you very much again, Mr. Kamaru, and maybe we will shift all the questions to the panel discussion. Okay, thank you. So I would like to move to the second presentation by Dr. Florian Kragner from the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis, or we call IASA. Together with his IASA research group on agriculture, forestry, and ecosystem services, Dr. Kragner is focusing on biophysical ecosystem, land use, and integrated landscape modeling, complemented with the renewable energy system optimization. Since 2018, he is also the president of the International Boreal Forest Research Association. He has authored over 100 peer-reviewed publications and holds a visiting professorships with the Division of Environmental Science and Biotechnology, College of Life Science and Biotechnology, Korea University. He received a PhD in environmental science from Hokkaido University in Sapporo, Japan, and a bachelor and master degrees in forestry from Boku University in Vienna. And his presentation today is on the sustainable bioeconomy approach, best practices in Europe and Southeast Asia by using the bioenergy modeling. Okay, Dr. Kragner, please.
So, hello, everybody.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Can you see my screen?
Yes, but we are waiting for the full screen now.
Yes, I'm moving to full screen now. Hopefully this works. Let me see. Try it again.
Okay, perfect.
Now? Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Professor Fukuda, first of all, for this nice introduction and of course, for inviting me to give this presentation in your session. I think this is really an excellent opportunity also to exchange a little bit our experiences here and to show the tools that we are using at EASA, which you kindly presented before, and also my previous speaker who gave an excellent introduction, so that I don't have to go into this broader overview. This presentation is based on a collaboration with our Asian colleagues, Fumi Hararap, who is presently at KTH in Stockholm, Sweden, and Arif Maud Idris, who is from the University of Technology in Malaysia. So also my introduction has shown that I have a lot of relations to Asia, so I'm really happy to present here. But let me quickly also indicate a few informations about IASA, my institute, which is located nearby Vienna in Austria, an international institute that conducts multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary research to help policymakers find long-term solutions to global and universal challenges facing countries. So this is a very long vision and mission of the institute, but in fact this means we are an institute with 24 member countries at the moment, and in the Southeast Asian area we have Indonesia, Malaysia, and Vietnam as member countries in our organization. So we are very close to Thailand, and we hope that also Thailand will soon have the opportunity to join us here and to join our research. Yeah, what are we using here in terms of systems analysis? This is, of course, using information technology, general systems theory, systems engineering, optimization, as you will see later on in my presentation, operations research, data analysis, and decision making. Soft systems techniques that are used, so a lot of social sciences, and artificial intelligence, which sounds a little bit, let's say, elevated, but in reality, this is realized in terms of machine learning, which I prefer actually in my presentations, which we are using everywhere. And in my particular group that you already presented, Professor Fukuda, Agriculture, Forestry, Ecosystem Services, we are focusing basically on biophysical modeling in the global agriculture and cropland domain, biophysical modeling in the global forest domain, as can be seen here in the center with our model G4M. We are also looking into natural disturbances, because this is very much affecting actually the feedstock we have for biomass and bioenergy. And we apply here optimal management, which is mostly done through techno-economic modeling and our model Beware, which will be featured throughout this presentation in more detail. So what is this Beware approach from IASA in order to actually do some modeling in the area of energy, biofuels, and synfuels? Please have a look at the versatility of Beware. We call it here the Beware umbrella, which of course reflects all the feedstock that we are using, like forest resources, crop residuals, waste, algae, etc., but also the technologies and the products. So we can address solar energy, wind power, hydropower, electric transport, geothermal power. Of course, we produce biofuels, heat. We can use biochar and produce fertilizer. Power is, of course, at the center here. Electricity, power to liquid and gas, and co-firing and BECCS, the bioenergy combined with carbon capture and storage in order to take CO2 out of the atmosphere with the help of bioenergy. All that can be addressed with this model, why we think this is a very useful model to be also promoted in this conference. So what's behind it? Actually, it's a very simplistic basic function that is an optimization. In this case, it's a cost minimization for the welfare of the region. And what we are looking for is actually, in its basic version of the model, new bioenergy plant locations. And for that, we need to know all the logistical constraints. Of course, what are the primary energy resources, but here combined, what are also the environmental constraints when producing these primary energy resources, like feedstock from forests or feedstock from agriculture. And we need to know what are the existing energy conversions and what is the energy demand in the place we are trying to optimize the renewable energy system, and what is, for instance, imported from outside, so that we can really have a complete look, holistic look at a country or at a region. So we optimize with this model location, capacity, technology, and the timing of energy conversion sites. And how does this look like in practice? Let's move and start in Europe. But this is general information. Just the illustration here is from Europe. We need, of course, a lot of input data. We need road and train network input data of the distribution. We need to know where are the power lines that exist, even though we can even plan and optimize new power lines, for instance, where are existing power stations. What are the present costs for transport, distribution, plant setup, investment costs? What are the fossil fuel costs at the moment? Because this is what we are competing against with our renewable energy. What is the constraints by the environment? Where is protected area? What about biodiversity hotspots we need to take into consideration in addition? So what are the production sites? Is there existing infrastructure already, or is it a complete greenfield development? What are the techno-economic parameters? And what is the biomass, the actual feedstock that is available here? What's the growing stock? What's the quality? Can we use all of it, or is it better even to go for only residues, etc.? All that needs to be put into the model, and this means the model is very data hungry, but the results are also very high resolution results. That means they are spatially explicit. So how does the input data look like? So we are using here, for instance, assessments of sawn wood that would be available for our feedstock, assessments of pulpwood, and this is an example of Finland here. You see, this is a high resolution assessment. Where can we source our resources? Forest biomass in general, what is available here? And then also what are existing residues that are produced, in this case from sawmilling industry, for instance. Where are the wood import points and how much is going to be imported at these points? And on the other hand, what's the existing industry? Where is the pulp mill industry? Where is the pellet plants? Where is the sawmilling industry? Because these are all our competitors, and we have to source in many cases the same feedstock, and so we need to know where our competitors are sitting, basically. And then, of course, what's the already existing infrastructure in terms of bioenergy CHP plants, for instance. And very important also transport. You know, it's not only important to produce feedstock, but we need to get it also from A to B. And this is, for instance, information on a transport network that we feed into our model, or on the other hand, the railways, for instance. And then you can add here, for instance, the harbors if you are on the sea side, etc. And what do we produce? One example is here, we can produce a costing landscape. And you can see here that lowest costs are in red, and the more blue it becomes, the higher the costs are. This is an example of Sweden, where most of the population, and hence also most of the demand for renewable energy, is sitting in the south and around the bigger cities. And the further north you go, the more scarce the population becomes, and therefore also the demand and the costs. So this is one example what we can do. But then, of course, we can do this not only for one country. We can do this calculations for an entire region like Europe. We can consider biomass trade between different countries, and consider a scaled economy, which is certainly very important. From here, let me give you just one example that is maybe also interesting to know. Even though a little bit further away from pure biomass, but just to indicate a little bit the versatility of the model. This is that we try to optimize the aviation fuel needs from direct air capture in Europe. Direct air capture, so this is basically soaking out CO2 from the atmosphere in order to use it, in this case, to produce synfuels. We know that in the future, if we look at the IEA global hydrogen demand by 2070, the biggest demand will be coming from this synfuel demand. So I guess this includes here the aviation sector and the transport sector as such. This is why we have to look into it. And in our assessment, we first of all try to get all the input data from all the airports that are around in Europe. These are 345 large to medium scale airports, which are flying 8,825 routes, so to say. And all that needs a total fuel demand of 1.2 petajoules per year. This is a really big amount. And just to give you an example, so this is about 500 million cubic meters of water that we need in order to produce this amount of energy through hydrogen. So we are thinking here of the past Tokyo Games, 200,000 Olympic swimming pools, what we need. We need 2 petajoules of electricity to put in order to produce these biofuels, or these synfuels in this case. This is 1/4 of the European electricity consumption. And we can, by that way, save 175 million tons of CO2 emissions, which is basically the entire aviation sector in Europe. So just to give you some dimensions, and also here the question is, how do we best use our models? How do we meet the demand? What is the optimal technology? Where do we locate the production units, and when does this come in place? And here you see a special adaptation of our renewable energy models towards this hydrogen economy, where the feedstock is water, electricity, as mentioned before, and CO2, which we have to take from somewhere. We can take it through this direct air capture technology directly from the air, like a big machine that soaks it out of the air, or we can take it directly from the stacks where a lot of CO2 is produced, for instance, cement industry, steel industry, or from the power sector that is still based mainly on fossil fuels, where we can use this CO2 and, so to say, reutilize it If we take it from the atmosphere and turn it into biofuel, then this would be a net zero technology. If we take it, for instance, the CO2 from a biomass, from a bioenergy plant, then this would be even a negative emission technology here. So you see here the different steps, how we get through Fischer-Tropsch synthesis to our synfuels. Also here, we need to assess Europe very carefully, particularly with respect to where do we get all the water from, where do we get all the renewable energy from, because if we produce this from non-renewable energy, then this would be no improvement versus fossil-based aviation fuel. And where do we get the CO2 from? Do we have a full data set of all available stacks and point sources, so to say, or can we build up these direct air capture plants in Europe? And what we can preliminary say here from our calculations is that most potential to produce hydrogen in the future over the next 3 decades is in Europe, France, and Germany. These are unpublished results, and from here let's move to Southeast Asia, where we have and can show already some published results that we are producing with our BWare model. In this case, the first example is from our collaboration with the University of Technology in Malaysia, where we did a complete biomass feedstock assessment with our BWare Malaysia model. You can see here different maps of Malaysia, different colors. The grade of light or dark color means higher availability of biomass turned into a energy unit here already in terms of terawatt hours per year for different feedstock. For instance, the left upper map in green shows palm oil mill residues. Then we have below that oil palm plantation residues. We looked into paddy residues. We looked into the option to produce biogas and the feedstock that is needed for that one, which is basically a combination of all kinds of residues and wastes. And we looked, of course, into the crude palm oil production. And this gives us now a possibility to come up with an optimal renewable energy mix from these biomass feedstock resources. And we can, with that, calculate different scenarios over time, which you see on the right-hand side, where we can also assess the dynamics of the different technologies, where we can clearly see that under certain renewable energy scenarios by 2050, bioelectricity, bioheat, and the co-firing technologies will dominate or could dominate the renewable energy sector in Malaysia. We can show here that it is possible to up the shares of bioenergy by either 30, 27, or 12%, depending on the scenario assumptions in terms of power, heat, and transport fuels in this region. So these are the kind of assessments which we can do spatially explicit. And from here, let me just mention that this, for instance, has been published recently in Applied Energy journal and can be therefore found in the literature. Another interesting study has been the optimization model for palm oil supply chain in Indonesia, where we basically modified the BWare basic model setup, as I have shown in one of the earlier slides, into this very much adapted model for the palm oil industry. Here we can see the different steps that are being tackled by the model in the upper line in yellow. So we assess the oil palm biomass, and from there we identify what are the transport options and where are the different existing mills. So to say the feedstock assessment and the infrastructure assessment. In these two steps, we do data collection, we assess the biomass potential, their locations, we assess the infrastructure capacity. Again, location is very important. What are the technologies that are applied there? What are the costs in terms of transport, but also product costs, etc. And this is basically an ArcGIS, Excel, and Python exercise in terms of the software used. In a next step, we use here GAMS. This is the optimization process. Where the biomass products are assessed, and we look at the demand, and therefore an optimal distribution over the area can be achieved. And in a final step, these are then the scenario runs where the ready-made model is, so to say, applied, where we try to run our optimization against a certain reference system for different scenarios, and this is then basically the result interpretation. And this has been done for Malaysia in very much detail. You see here a nice graph where we considered basically all the palm oil plantations, the transport from plantation to the different plants, what are the different feedstocks in terms of palm oil or products, effluents. What are we using? Are we using the shell, the empty fruit bunch? Are we using the fiber, etc.? And then how can we optimally ship it from one island to the demand islands? So we see that Java is, in this case, mostly an island that is provided with palm oil products and bioenergy that could be produced in Sumatra and Indonesian part of Borneo. So these are these kind of optimization chains. And also this has been published with our colleague Fumihara Rapp, who is presently at the Royal Technological University in Stockholm, as mentioned already earlier. And another study of hers is the efficient use of palm oil biomass residues to meet national bioenergy goals in Indonesia. So this is basically the follow-up study. First of all, there was a feasibility and optimization study with respect to the entire sector. And now we wanted to know, what if we improve the system? And of course, you can improve the system in terms of using the existing feedstocks up to a maximum. You can improve the system by improve the efficiency of the technologies, of the transport, etc. All that information comes into this scenario, what you see at the moment. All existing mills are provided with biomass residues, and we can see roughly that the district electricity demand is highest in the darker green areas and lower in the more light green areas, and we can produce here 760 megawatt in terms of electricity equivalents. This would mean we can fulfill with the existing technology, if we optimize this and the existing infrastructure, 12% of the bioelectricity target in Indonesia. And we can identify costs that would have been to invested of $250 million per year. Now, let's move to a second scenario, which we called the improved yield in small-scale plantations and electricity grid connection. And you see that demand remains the same, but we improve infrastructure in terms of electricity grid, and we improve the productivity of small-scale plantations for palm oil production. And this would mean we could produce 2,800 megawatts. We would reach with that 50% of the national bioelectricity target, but of course also the costs will be higher, $760 million investment per year. On the other hand, you see that this is not a relative expansion of the costs, but basically you are saving here because you produce about 4 times more electricity. You reach half of the national target and have only 3 times the costs. And what we can also calculate here is, of course, not only the costs per se, but also what happens with respect to another target. There is one target to have national security in terms of energy production. Another one would be this energy production should happen in terms of renewable energy production. But there is a very important target also, which is emission reduction. And we can see here that we, with the first scenario, with the simple use, optimize what's already available, we could reduce, in the best case, the emissions by something like 28 million tons CO2. And if we go for the second scenario, where we improve the grid connectivity and the small-scale production of oil palms, you see that the emission reductions would be substantially higher, and we would almost reach 45 million tons CO2 equivalents. And also this study has been published recently in the Energies Journal, and all details can be looked up here. So this let me come to my last slide. These are some very simple but sometimes forgotten take-home messages which I would like to convey here, is that it is very important to have a plan of what you would like to do, where can it be done, and by when. So these are the important 3 W's that we have to address with our models in order to also assess national targets, if these are realistic to be reached, and what would be the actual results. Very often targets are set without doing very detailed analysis before, and then the surprise is big that this cannot be reached, or that the target is actually not ambitious enough. Biomass assessments, bioenergy assessments highly depend on interactions with other parameters. So we have shown this in the last study. It is not only the technology efficiency, but we have to, of course, also take very much care of the feedstock side in terms of sustainability, but also productivity. And optimization, the way we do it here, needs a lot of detailed information throughout the entire supply chain. Remember the Finnish examples of how nitty putting in here the infrastructure information, etc., in order to come up with optimally placed and lowest cost infrastructure. Are very important in these kind of bioenergy assessments, and the IASA Beware tool is one tool that is very versatile in its use, and actually collaboration is manifold with many countries all over the world. And what we should do definitely is to watch out for synergies in terms of the investment costs. So we should not only have one target in mind, which is ramp up renewable energy, but on the other hand, we should also see how we optimize at the same time, for instance, CO2 reduction targets, because they do not always go directly hand in hand. So a lot of interactions need to be addressed. With that, I would like to thank you very much And here you have some contact addresses in order to get in touch with us.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Florian Krachtner. We also hope that Thailand will be one of the partners with EASA as well, and especially the use of the Beware. So we have seen how it can be used for the modeling, for the optimization. Yeah, and so Dr. Krachtner have explained about the system analysis tools, applying some advanced technologies and techno-economic model and optimization, not only for the cost, but also the impact, other impacts. So in conclusion, like the holistic look of the system is important, and also it will be excellent for planning for the bioenergy development, or where should be the suitable location. Yes. Okay, so thank you very much again, Dr. Krachtner. So now we will move to the third presentation by Mr. Wacharin Bunyarit, the Director of Strategy and Planning Division, Department of Alternative Energy Development and Efficiency, or we call DEDE, and from the Ministry of Energy. And the topic of Mr. Wacharin today will be the community-based biomass power plant, a sustainable bioenergy approach under the bio-circular and green economy model. So Mr. Wacharin, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly, and we can see your slide as well.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Wacharin Bunyarit. I come from Ministry of Energy, Department of Alternative Energy Development and Efficiency. Today, I would like to show and talk about the highlight project in Thailand, the community-based biomass power plant. Many of you maybe have known about this project before, so I would like to show that the combination with the National Energy Plan and the project in line with the BCG model as the topic today. So firstly, I would like to show you the big picture of the Thailand National Energy Plan and the BCG concept in Thailand. So in Thailand, we have the energy policy. We call it the National Energy Plan 2022. This is coming up with the next year. So the big concept of the National Energy Plan, we try to use the energy for the economic growth, and to use the energy for the job and income, and to use the energy for improve infrastructure of the future to the country. So this concept is leading to the major policy in the country. So this is the whole concept of the National Energy Plan 2022. As you may know, we have four parts of the target. We try to increase the renewable share in the country for more than 50% in the future. And we will promote the electric vehicle or EV in the country with the target 30 at 30. That means 30% of the car in the country should be exceed 30% by the year 2030. And at the same time, we try to promote the energy efficiency of the country to reduce the energy intensity for more than 30%. And finally, we try to promote the idea of 4D and 1E. The target of National Energy Plan, we try to go to the carbon neutrality in the year around 2065 to 2070. by using the many mechanisms, including BCG model. I would like to show you what is the idea of the 4D and 1E. 4Ds come from decarbonization. We try to promote the renewable energy efficiency, and community power plant to distribute the power plant into the local area. We promote the digitalization, use like a smart grid, Internet of Things, and big data to manage the energy use in the country. The decentralization, we try to promote the power plant in the rural area and distribute power generation. Deregulation, to deregulate the some regulation that is the barrier to promote renewable energy, and to promote more smart grid, and some business model like such as a prosumer and peer-to-peer, for example. And finally, the electrification, that is, we come to the EV period and move the energy for to electrification for more in the future. This is the time that Thailand try to do the energy transition. We do both in the three sectors, in electricity, renewable energy, and energy efficiency. This is the concept that the future of energy. We will see that we will have many plans in the country, like a PDP plan, power development plan, energy efficiency plan, or EP, alternative energy development plan, and gas plan and oil plan. Those plans is combined into the national energy plan to promote the smart and green industry, smart community, smart life. By using the smart energy technology innovation, eco and green, and the community-based. Yeah, this is what we expect from the national energy plan. We try to use energy for economic growth. You will see that one of the big measure is to transition toward being the regional and community-based power plant. This is one of the highlight projects. The project will lead to the job creation and income for the people in the rural area, like farmer or community enterprise. So, Ministry of Energy Thailand, we comply the BCG concept or model into our job or our initiative. You will see that we have many projects under the Ministry of Energy that in line with the BCG model. We have the community-based power plant. We have the solar promotion, biomass, biogas, and at the same time we try to promote EV, biofuel. Those projects can level up the good being of the people, and to increase the income, and at the same time to reduce the CO2 emission for the environmental friendly. I would like to show you the mix of energy used in Thailand. You will see that the total energy consumption in Thailand last year, around 70% is come from the fossil fuel, and 70 to 80%, and around 15 or 16% is come from renewable energy. This is will show you more detail how that we apply the renewable energy for the country. The renewable energy is come from the electricity, biofuel, and heat. The most portion of renewable energy is come from heat, and followed by the electricity. So I would like to show that how potential of the renewable energy in Thailand, especially by the biomass and biogas. The development of renewable energy in Thailand, that I told you that we have a renewable energy plan. The last plan we project and target to have the renewable energy share in the country is more than 30% by the year 2037. Right now, we achieved the number around 16.4% of renewable sharing in the country. This is the potential and current status from each field in the renewable energy, such as solar, wind, small hydro, biomass, biogas, and waste to energy. Biomass is one of the big portion or potential of the renewable energy in the country that's come from the many sector, especially from the farmer or from the agriculture. And at the same time, the setup of biogas production power is growing and growing, and we have many sorts of biogas in the country. So this is come up to develop the initiative to utilize the renewable energy such as the biomass and biogas. You will see that the community-based power plant is one of the big projects to apply the biomass and biogas in the country. So I would like to go to the pilot project this year that we have start the project called community-based biomass power plant pilot project 2021. The concept of the project is to initiate community participation for sustainable power generation, consumption, and purchasing, to promote a community to be the plant owner, as well as conducting public acceptance, and increase electricity stability nearby the power plant to contribute local economic by gaining benefit from the fuel purchasing. The two kinds of fuels in the project is come from biomass and biogas, and they can utilize with non-firm contract and can use energy storage in the system also. The community enterprise hold at least 10% of the project equity, and power plant must buy a fuel from the community around the power plant, not less than 80%. This year of project, we target with the 150 megawatt of the power plant. This is the concept or the methodology that we apply to the project. As I told you that the private investor share the 90% equity, and community can share 10% of the equity. Community around the power plant can get the benefit like a social welfare, public health, utilities, hospital, school, like education and health service. And community enterprise and farmer group, not less than 200 households can supply and sell the biomass and biogas raw material with the contract price. And at least 80% of raw material is must be come from the community around the power plant. The contract of the power plant is not less than 20 years with non-firm contract, and you sell the electricity to the Provincial Electric Authority and Metropolitan Electric Authority of Thailand. This is the result this year, that finally we get the 43 power plant that has the contract finally with the capacity 149.5 megawatt. This is come from what is a 6 power plant, and biomass more than 3 megawatt is 10 power plant, and biogas power plant is around 27, those power plant is contained in the 19 provinces in the country. You see that the distribution of the power plant in the project in the map. So we can gain and benefit from plant project. The benefit from the project is the community benefit is from power plant that is income from selling agriculture material as fuel and create job, reduce labor migration, and building strength of the community. For this project, community enterprise and farmer group can have again income for more than 2,000 million baht per year and can create more than 19,000 jobs. And for the country economic, there is a total investment around 13,000 million baht. And operating and maintenance over 20 years is around 15,000 million baht. And finally, it is CO2 reduction is around 486,000 tons of CO2 per year. This is my presentation power plant that start in Thailand this year, and is in the next year the policy of the power plant will be expand into the another area of the country and can increase the renewable energy and BCG concept in the country in the future by sustainability issue and can confirm the sustainable in the energy sector of the country. This is my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wacharin Bunyarit, for your excellent summary of the renewable energy and bioenergy status in Thailand, and also very important pilot project for the sustainable bioenergy development in Thailand, which promotes the contribution and also the socio-economic benefits for the community. Yes. Okay, thank you very much. So now I would like to move to our fourth presentation, which is another interesting and important issues. In fact, is another national agenda on the circular economy. And our fourth expert presenters is Dr. Vichan Simachaya. He's the president of Thailand Environmental Institute and the Secretary General of Thailand Business Council for Sustainable Development. He's a chairman of the circular economy under Circular Green Economy Model, which is the current national agenda, and in fact is appointed by the government. He served as several high-ranking positions in the past, including the permanent secretary of the Ministry of National Resources and Environment. Dr. Vichan holds bachelor degrees in chemical education and laws from Chiang Mai University and Ramkhamhaeng University, respectively, a master's in environmental science from Kasetsart University, and a graduate diploma in sanitary engineering from Chulalongkorn University. He received a PhD in environmental engineering from University of Guelph, Canada, and honorary doctor degrees in environmental science, environmental management, and environmental education from 7 universities in Thailand. So I think he's a real expert in the pollution and the waste management, circular economy. And the presentation The topic of the presentation today is Sustainable Waste Management, a Circular Economy Integrated Approach. Okay, Dr. Vichan, please.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my great pleasure to be here, especially to join the ASEAN Sustainable Energy Week 2021, especially in the section 3, Biocircular and Green Economy for Sustainable Development. The outline of my presentation will cover the status of waste management in Thailand, BCG model, circular economy, and big rock project, especially for the application of the circular economy in Thailand. If you see here, this is from the Pollution Control Department report. Thailand generates municipal solid waste around 29 million tons a year, consists of 2 million tons of plastic waste. 44% of waste were segregated and enabled to recycle, mostly including the organic waste. 33% with the properly disposed most landfill in our country, and another 22% is inappropriate dispose of waste. The component characteristic of waste, you can take a look at the pie chart, mostly from the organic waste, 64%, followed by plastic, paper, and other. In 2018, Thailand domestic production of plastic now for over 6 million tons. Plastic waste is an important environmental issue in Thailand and ASEAN region. Thailand, among other 5 ASEAN countries, play a top 10 contributor to plastic waste contamination into the ocean. Thailand produced roughly 2 million tons of plastic waste annually, but only 25% of plastic waste can be recycled, and another 75% go to landfill, open dump site, and leak to the environment, mostly plastic bag. Over the past 10 years, the waste generation rate has been increased by 4 million tons. There are currently 2,273 waste management facilities operating in the country, mostly from the government or local authority account for 90%, and another 10% by the private sector. During COVID-19 pandemic, plastic waste was increasing. Average for the whole country is roughly 15%, but in Bangkok metropolitan area, is increasing around 60%. Actually, come from food delivery activity, online packaging, each food order produce at least 7 items of plastic waste. Thailand has a national policy and action plan, including major 4 aspects. The first one is the waste generation and collection system, with cover 3R, reduce, reuse, and recycle application, increasing efficiency of waste separation and collection, and waste recovery and disposal, covering the improvement of waste disposal site, waste to energy, REA, for example. Law and regulation development also very important for Thailand, but last and not least is the public involvement. Next, I would like to talk about the waste to energy. This is the list of waste to energy technology used in Thailand, including incineration, landfill gas to energy, gasification, pyrolysis, and RDF and other. The alternative energy already mentioned by Kun Vacharin. The alternative energy plan is at 30% of total energy consumption in which waste to energy of municipal solid waste, which total capacity of 400 megawatts this year. Currently, there are 18 projects approved with capacity of 228 megawatts. There is still some room for new investment. Next, I would like to touch a bit about the BCG, already mentioned by Kun Vacharin. BCG's new economic model as a new national agenda for the country. Why we need BCG? The developed country had moved forward to set net zero emission target and 100% of clean technology like the US and European Green Deal policy for the European Community also set the target of net zero emission by 2050. In Asia, Japan also set the target for the carbon neutrality by using the Japan Green Growth Strategy policy also by 2050. Many countries around the world have been set the target either net zero emission or carbon neutrality. Some countries very restrict with the target before 2050, such as Scandinavian Committee, already mentioned by Mr. Packer, and at the early stage by 2035 to 2040, Thailand has set the target for carbon neutrality by 2065 to 2070. This is the this show Thailand also has set the national determined contribution or NDC based on Paris Agreement on the climate change. To aim at reducing greenhouse gas emission at 20 to 25 by 2030, covering 4 sectors, including 118 million ton carbon dioxide equivalent from energy sector, followed by 35 million ton from the transportation sector, 2.2 million ton from industrial sector, and 1.5 million ton of carbon dioxide equivalent for waste sector. Let's move to the BCG model already mentioned. BCG model is the Thai strong promote a new economic model known as the BCG. Y stands for bioeconomy, C stands for circular economy, and G stands for clean economy. BCG has already approved by the cabinet this year as a national agenda for the country. BCG economic model is implementing as post-19 based on the principle of sufficient economy philosophy of the King Ramanai, and support sustainable development for the major area covering food security, health security, energy security, employment security, and sustainable natural resources and environment. For the BCG driven organization, there are 3 levels of BCG Administration Committee chaired by the Prime Minister, And the second one is the different committee chaired by the Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation, and 11 subcommittee related to various BCG targets. They also have been served as the chairman of a circular economy subcommittee. The country will move from an unstable linear economy to more sustainable circular economy with transfer from take, make, dispose of linear economy to make use return of circular economy model. The energy source will also move from fossil-based to renewable sources. This slide also show the development of circular economy approach from linear economy to recycle economy, then circular economy context including reduce environmental footprint, like to produce like a green product, minimize of waste by recycling waste and reuse resources, reduce resource dependency, and generate income with green job creation. Why we need circular economy? The country is facing resource scarcity with the overconsumption, the severity of pollution, and the emission of greenhouse gas also very important. A circular economy will benefit and support ACT, as I already mentioned earlier, and maximizing resource efficiency and reducing pollution, as well as minimizing global climate change impact. This will also create new economic opportunity in line with the various national policy. The driving mechanism of circular economy in BCG, you can take a look here. We have TC. C1 is the closing group with the goal of reduction 1.4 among of current natural resources consumption. C2 is the creating new economic goal of about 1% GDP increasing with in 10 years. And C3 is the combating the climate change and pollution. Target sector we selected in implementing circular economy in Thailand, including plastic waste, food loss from agriculture and food industry, and construction sector, which consume a lot of natural resources. For plastic, for example, we are implement the closed loop of system that support national roadmap on plastic waste management. This implement closely with all stakeholders. We set milestone to reduce the target of plastic as PET, PETP plastic at 100% by 2030. This will impact the reduction of energy consumption, resource consumption, greenhouse gas emission, pollution and problem, and income generation as well. The Federation of Thai Industry and Thailand Business Council for Sustainable Development has signed the MOU on development of PTP plastic or public-private partnership for sustainable plastic and waste management for the country, just run out in June the 5th, 2018. The component of PP plastic include more than 40 organizations from associate organization, government sector, private sector, international organization, and educational institution. We also developed the dot point project, for example, named Magic Handbone, that we create a plastic-based collecting system for 12 film and packaging plastic. Currently, we can collect plastic waste at about 18,000 kilograms. The value of plastic is about 5 baht per kilogram. So that this amount will go to the marine life conservation program. During COVID-19, our member of PPP Plastic Rama company used 80,000 post-consumer of PET bottle recycled into 17,000 overall PPP suit for 200 hospital during COVID pandemic. PPP Plastic work to support the government policy, especially I mentioned earlier on the roadmap on plastic waste management, also to reduce plastic marine debris at rate 50% by 2027. There are two targets. The target one is reduce and replace some single-use plastic by using environmental friendly products, and we set our target. For the target 2 is the recycle target plastic waste by applying circular economy principle at 100% by 2027. For our big rock, I have mentioned earlier why we need circular economy. C3 forcing role create new economic goals and combating with the environmental problem. There are 3 indicators in the plan. The first one is reduce natural resources consumption by 25% within 2027. And the second one is create investment opportunity for growth and employment within new economic model, and resulting in 1% increasing GDP and reducing environmental problem. The circular action plan already approved by the BCG committee covering investment opportunity, market creation, technology innovation development, the platform development, sharing platform management mechanism, system development and regulation, as well as circular economy, citizen and awareness raising. This Big Rock project I already mentioned earlier, 3 projects including plastic waste, food waste, and construction waste. PPP Plastic also implement a project in Rayong that gain support from AEPW, that we work closely with the various stakeholders, private sector and government sector. We call Rayong Less Waste. The project aim to expand the community and local waste management with a circular economy in Rayong province, covering 68 local authority in the province to generate income and also carry a better quality of life and reduce amount of plastic waste go to landfill and incineration. The Rayong model is implemented for the whole province. The work plan including waste generation, waste collection, waste segregation, and final disposal. The clean plastic waste go to recycle or upcycle, while the contaminated plastic waste go to REA and power plant. This chart also show the implementation of pilot area in the community level with the 522 household. Waste generation is about 40 tons a month. Segregation of waste at source by waste bank can reduce waste more than half. This is our project pilot project. The project also developed a manual of waste management at the committee level by using a circular economy. If you are interested, you can from our website free of charge. And last but not least, in my conclusion, the driver mechanism of BCG circular economy are based on the benefit of key project and development pilot model, such as plastic waste I mentioned earlier. Develop the circular economy platform. Waste from factory can be a second resort to another factory. Public-private partnership also very important. I give you some example of the PPP plastic that we work closely with the government and private sector, and how we can build up the circular economy, society, and citizen. And the most important thing is how we can create a circular economy market. With that is this to conclude my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vichan Simachaya, for your comprehensive information about the circular economy as a national plan. So we can see how important the circular economy for the sustainable waste management and how the circular economy can be integrated for that. And circular economy include the plastic waste, agricultural and food industry, and also construction sector. So we have also seen the target, the country target of the material recycle, and also how it contribute to the CO2 reduction. And just one thing, Dr. Vichan presented about the campaign Magic Hand and Won, right? And maybe Won is the, like, in English is circulation.
Yeah.
We use or something, yeah. Because somebody might understood as one. Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you very much again, Dr. Vichan Simachaya. So now we enter the next session, which is a panel discussion. In fact, the topic for the panel discussion will be something related to the the decarbonization for the in the net zero emission scenarios. But I think all of you have already mentioned about that. But just in case, if you want to just recap on how the biomass and waste can potentially contribute to help the decarbonization for each sectors. It can be the industry and utilities, or it can be transport sector, or something. Yeah, if you want to just to say a few words more about that. Yes, maybe I would like to start with Mr. Kamamuru, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. Was also just to point out, enjoyed the other three presentations as well. I've learned a lot of developments happening in Thailand, which is quite exciting. Coming to that question on how bioenergy can help decarbonize various industries. First is that, as I've pointed out, in all the pathways towards net zero or climate neutrality, bioenergy plays an important role. And for that, we need a lot more bioenergy in the system. And the contribution, for example, for now of bioenergy in different sectors, of course, varies differently. but we see its impact already. For example, if you talk about transport, still about 96-97% of oil energy consumption in the transport sector is oil, and about 3%, the remaining 3% is biofuels, mainly bioethanol, biodiesel, and also biomethane and biogas, which is also important. The share of, I mean, we keep hearing a lot about electricity and electrification of transport, not just transport, but heating and other industries. But we still have a long way to go for that. And considering the timeline that we've got from IPCC, bioenergy has to play a critical role in all these end-use sectors, and it's already doing that in transport and in industry. And as I've highlighted some examples, the one, for example, in Indonesia was for a brewery, providing heat and steam for a brewery, replacing natural gas. The one in China was actually replacing coal for providing hot water and steam for automotive car manufacturing company. So the reasons are quite different as to why the transition is happening, for example, for now. Of course, there are some examples are because of subsidies like feed-in tariffs and carbon taxes and so on. But mainly it's cost. We've seen a common theme that in some of these examples is that using biomass, utilizing local resources, local waste resources, whether it's rice husk or straw or wood industry residues and so on, it's actually quite cheaper than utilizing the current fossil fuels. It's not the same everywhere. But it is a case, an economic case for some of these industries to make this switch, and we see that already happening. But just to conclude, we still need a bit more push from the governments, from the policymakers to ensure that the bioenergy, utilizing bioenergy is incentivized, and that there is a level playing field, that bioenergy doesn't have to compete with heavily subsidized fossil fuels, because that kind of distorts the competition. So unless we make it a level playing field, it's sometimes in some sectors it's challenging, but in the other sectors we see there's already quite an interesting developments in all end-use sectors.
Okay, yes, thank you. In fact, I agree with you about the switching from fossil fuel. What will be the motivation of the users? And there are already also some examples in Thailand that the users switch from LPG, the liquefied petroleum gas, to the biomass pellets or something. Yeah, because of the fuel cost, and they voluntarily chose the biomass. Yeah, that is one. Yeah, but for others, I think the government subsidies are still needed, at least for the short term, until the technologies or the development is already established. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So next, I would like to move to Dr. Crackner. Would you like to say a few words about how biomass can potentially contribute to the decarbonization, and maybe what needed to be done, yeah, in order to accelerate or promote the biomass?
Yeah, 2 or 3 thoughts maybe. One continuing from my previous speaker. I think that we are facing now quite steep increases in energy prices, particularly in fossil fuel-based energy prices, gas and oil. This is at least the case in Europe. And what is seen is that on the one hand side, yes, renewable energies in general are cheaper. But what is even more important, they have less price volatility. So the costs and the prices here are more constant, which is why we can rely on it. This is one factor. The second one, there are particularly these two sectors which you are mentioning, transport and industry, which are very hard to decarbonize. This is really a good and big chance for bioenergy. Many slides, including some of mine, have shown that the future of bioenergy is also particularly in the transport sector and in the industry. So we are having collaborations and having done quite some studies already on how to, for instance, substitute coal in steel milling with bioenergy and with charcoal in particular. This is one example. On the other hand, I've shown you quite some examples on how to contribute to the biofuel or even synfuel production, which is complementary and very important because similar systems, but also investigations and assessments have to be done in the forefront before ramping up such systems. And particularly, I would like to draw the attention on yes, biomass as a feedstock, particularly in tropical countries, might already be very cost competitive. However, we have to be very careful that we really source from sustainable feedstock production. Because here we are facing a lot of public resistance, particularly in Europe and the US. And most of the criticism doesn't come against the bioenergy as such, doesn't come against the technology, but it comes from the non-sustainable production of biomass. And therefore, a lot of our attention at the moment, in order to keep up the market and the development, and we see that we need 3 times more actually, has to be put on sustainable feedstock production. This is absolutely key.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yes, thank you. Kun Vacharin. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So for the Thailand policy about the renewable energy, so as you may know, we mentioned both in electricity and renewable in heat. I have shown you that many projects of us try to promote the renewable energy to produce electricity for the country. But in another way, we try to promote the renewable in the heat, for example, in the industrial, like a cement industrial, to replace the coal utilization in the country. That will lead to the carbon reduction, CO2 reduction of the country. That is our major goal, that we try to use bioenergy as the major fuels of the renewable energy plan. But in the future, there is some concern to use the renewable energy from the bioenergy, because right now, as you may know, the cost of the solar will have the reduction of the price in the solar system. So in the future, the competitiveness between solar and biofuel or bioenergy may be concerned to protect the prosumer in the electricity cost in the future. So this is the major concern that Thai government to shape the new energy policy in the future. And another thing that I have to tell that the bioenergy is come from the agriculture. But agriculture in the country also is for the produce the food for the country, or for the import or export. So the bioenergy should not disturb the production of the food industry in the country also. This is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Kun Vacharin. Okay, so now I would like to ask Dr. Vichan to talk about this.
Okay, thank you very much. I think our colleague already mentioned when we talk about waste, not just only solid waste or municipal solid waste, but in our country we have a lot of waste that the potential to be a sort of energy, especially when we talk about the bioenergy. For example, Vacherin talk about agricultural waste, even the food waste from the industrial sector, something like that. That how we can utilize that kind of waste. For example, for the agricultural or residue from the agriculture, not just only serve energy sector, but also serve we talk about the climate change, we talk about the air pollution, especially in our country, we are facing with the PM 2.5 in dry season from open burning. If the government set the policy, integration policy that I think is good for our country, how we can implement that policy on the ground, especially you talk about the community power plant or something like that. That the waste is just around the community, how we utilize that kind of waste. That's important. Regulation and policy integration, I think, very important for the country. Thank you.
Thank you ค่ะ Dr. Vichan. I would like to ask Mr. Kamuru or Dr. Cracker about the kind of policy or incentive in Europe in terms of the decarbonization by the biomass in Europe, or the circular economy promotion in Europe. Would you like to share a bit on that?
Yeah, thank you, Professor Fukuda. As you know, Europe at least tries to be world leading with respect to these policy settings. And this, of course, is not an easy undertaking. So we have our new targets with showing zero emissions by 2050, of course, and having already massive reductions by 2040. And the framework here supports, of course, renewable energy development in various ways, mostly in direct payments for developments, but also to the final consumer in order to switch from, for instance, fossil fuel-based heating to a renewable energy-based heating source. Now, heating is not the real problem in Thailand and Southeast Asia, but it's the other way around. Probably it's the cooling, and here a lot of energy is provided through fossil fuel-based electricity, I can imagine. And I think this would be also one target to be addressed together with, of course, transport and industry sectors, and all up in front the energy sector. What is at the moment also very much in discussion is CO2 pricing. Just in Austria, the government managed, after 20 years of talking, to mimic the German CO2 pricing that starts at 30 euros per ton and moves gradually up to 50 and 70 euros per ton during the next decades. So this is definitely, the 30 euros is too low from my point of view to really give an incentive to the final end user, because this would mean an increase of 1 liter of gas at the gas station of 7 euro cents, which is comparable to maybe 6 US dollar cents or something like this, which is too little really to have a consumer-based incentive. But the hope is that the increase of this CO2 emission costs per ton will increase more steeply from these 30 euros. Since already Germany is trying to do so, we will hopefully follow soon. This is very important. Of course, there's also criticism that people with lower income will suffer most. Therefore, a lot of investments have to be put into these social effects, so that there is an equitable and just distribution, so to say, over the different social and income levels of the population. This is very important. If not, there will be too big opposition from the people.
Very briefly, I mean, good that we touched upon carbon taxes, which is a very fascinating story in Sweden, where I'm located. Sweden has a carbon tax of about 140 euros per ton, the highest in the world, which I think is one of the key drivers for bioenergy development across the industry. I mean, there are some specific sector policies, whether it's feed-in tariffs or transport fuel mandates of 10% in the European Union, as set by RED, the Renewable Energy Directive, and so on. But I think carbon tax was one kind of a sort of silver bullet, which helped bioenergy develop among all sectors. So right now, bioenergy is actually more than any fossil fuel consumption in Sweden. I think it's about 55 or 60% in the energy mix. When I say energy, it's not electricity, it's transport, heating, cooling, industries, and electricity. And I think transport, Sweden has about 25 to 30% biofuels in the renewable energy in the transport mix. So it's a mixed bag in the European Union. It's not the same in every country. But if I have to pick a common thread, one key takeaway, I think a price on carbon, on fossil carbon helped bioenergy develop quite a lot. And as Florian's pointed out, it's very, very important that ensure that this price is not borne by the consumers. So what happened when you keep increasing the prices of carbon, you also decrease, for example, income tax and so on. So proportionately, so that the effect is not felt by the end consumer, but the effect is felt by the fossil fuel producers and so on, who have to switch to renewable fuels, and especially bioenergy. So I think carbon tax helped a bit. Investment support, initial investment support for switching equipment was also helped in some ways. Feed-in tariffs, subsidies. So it's a mixed bag in the European Union. Right now, if I look at the future, there's a lot of discussions on this Fit for 55 package, where it's a reduction of aim is to reduce emissions by 55% by 2030. So surrounding that and this Renewable Energy Directive 2, and also discussions on 3, RED 2 is to 2030, and then 2030 and beyond. So there's a lot of developments happening, a lot of interesting policy developments happening in the EU level and at the national levels. So there's a lot of interesting things to learn. But I think for bioenergy in Sweden, for example, I think carbon price was a good strategy, which helped make the switch for across the industry.
Okay, thank you. So that may be something that we can learn and adapt as well for Thailand. Actually, there are a couple of questions to Dr. Vichan. Okay. The first question is on how the COVID-19 affect on the waste management scenarios. I'm not sure whether the waste management scenarios was already included the influence of the COVID waste, related waste. And another question is on you show the Rayong less waste model, right? Which is a kind of pilot project in order to extend it to other areas. What do you think will be the most important factor, to make it nationwide, for example? Could you turn on your microphone, please?
For the COVID-19 pandemic, I think the impact for the waste management in the country, our waste is decreasing because we have no tourism, but the composition of waste is different than before. Especially, I mentioned about the plastic composition. Plastic waste is increasing in Bangkok. It's more than 60%, but in country average is around 15%. That's the proportion of waste is showing. However, percentage of recycle is different, especially in Bangkok. We can reduce plastic at the 27%, but during COVID-19, the percentage of the recycled plastic reduced, while the plastic increasing reduced at the 19%, because most people are aware of the disease. That's the problem. Also, we have a problem with the capacity of infectious waste from hospital. That the number of people affected by COVID is increasing, but this is also the problem during the COVID-19. But for Rayong Raceway project, this is the pilot that we got the support from AEPW, and we work closely with the province. We try to develop the model that we are going to expand to other province as well, but not ourselves. But we have to work with the Ministry of Interior, that they're taking care of local authority for the country. What we have learned from Rayong, but how Rayong can, lesson learned from Rayong can expand to other provinces. That's very important. Even I talk about magic handbone, only pilot. But in terms for the long term sustainability, we have to work closely with the Ministry of Interior, local authority. That waste belong to the local authority in our country. Thank you.
So we need to have some kind of deregulation, right? Restructuring. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's we also exceed the time. So I think we come to the end of the session. Maybe any outstanding questions, maybe we will send to you later if there are. Yeah. And so I would like to thanks again all the expert speakers for today. Very interesting and fruitful session. And also thanks for all the audience for your kind attention. So so I think that's okay. I would like to say goodbye and have a good day. Now I would like to pass back the microphone to the organizer, Informa Market, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much to all the speakers and moderators for sharing knowledge and your expertise. And of course, also thank you to the audience for your participation. Before we end the session today, I would like to invite everyone to visit the virtual marketplace. This will be where our exhibitors, including some of the world's leading brands, showcase their latest technologies, innovations, solutions, and services in renewable energy, energy efficiency, environmental protection, electric vehicles, and smart pumps and valves. Only these 3 days, 14 to 16 of October, that you will be able to contact the exhibitor by using chat and call function that we provided, or even set the meeting with them. Thank you once again, and we look forward to seeing you next year during 14 to 16 of September 2022 at the new venue, Queen Sirikit National Convention Center, Bangkok, Thailand. Please stay safe and healthy, everyone. Goodbye. ขอบคุณค่ะ
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
ปัจจุบันเนี่ยขนาดโรงงานที่เราทำเรียกว่า Pilot Plant เนี่ยมีกำลังผลิตประมาณ30เมกะวัตต์อาวแล้วก็สามารถสเกลอัพขึ้นไปถึงระดับ100เมกะวัตต์อาวนะครับเรามีความมั่นใจครับว่าถ้าตลาดมันพัฒนาขึ้นไปตามเทคโนโลยีที่มีเนี่ยเราจะสามารถเข้าถึงการผลิตไม่ว่าจะเป็น30เมกะวัตต์ในปัจจุบัน100เมกะวัตต์และรวมไปถึงกิกะวัตต์อาวที่เรากำลังจะมาถึงครับเราพร้อมแล้วที่จะนำ Product นี้ไปสู่มือของลูกค้าที่จะนำประยุกต์แบตเตอรี่ของเราไปใช้งานในโลกพลังงานแห่งอนาคตที่เราเชื่อมั่น
Installing and maintaining a PV system is generally a safe, secure process. But like the cars we drive, some PV systems have more safety features than others. To protect your technicians and installers, Solar Edge employs some of the world's strictest safety standards. Our integrated Safe DC technology automatically de-energizes DC cables to a touch-safe 1 volt whenever the inverter is turned off. This complies with the strictest international standards protecting PV professionals, firefighters, and assets. Inverter-embedded arc detection, installed in hundreds of thousands of monitored systems all over the world, accurately identifies specified arcs and shuts down the inverter to prevent fires. Our optional auto reconnect feature allows for continued safe production until the issue is resolved. And safety meets convenience with our module-level monitoring and remote troubleshooting, which eliminate diagnostic work at dangerous heights. Best of all, Solar Edge safety is built into the system. No additional components or installation is required. Safe DC, arc prevention, module-level monitoring, and secure battery operation. That's how Solar Edge protects your team and your customers' investment.
We are seeing growing momentum around the world among governments, private business, and individuals towards carbon neutrality and net zero. We all want to leave a cleaner planet for our future generations, and hence we must act now. SCG is strongly committed towards sustainability. Our EV solution platform will drive and accelerate the speedier conversion towards smart and clean mobility.
EV Solution Platform is a one-stop service under the Smart Clean Mobility concept that allows partners to run their business worry-free at an affordable cost. The platform covers 3 areas: focusing on finished product with battery safety as the priority. Local production, for example, EV bus semi-knockdown unit assembly line and electric vehicle conversion are manufactured domestically. Maintenance and spare parts service. Charging station. Logistics operation service. And IT platform development for a seamless connection between service and solution, making users more convenient and confident when transitioning into electric vehicles. Customized business models from rental service, sales package, to logistics provider service for products or employees, with vehicle incident insurance type 1 and battery product liability insurance. Our one-stop service creates an EV ecosystem that offers worry-free solutions at an affordable cost for our partners. It is also environmentally friendly as electric vehicles emit less carbon dioxide and PM 2.5, resulting in a better quality of life.
I would like to invite all our partners and stakeholders to join us in this exciting journey. We're passionate towards delivering smart, clean mobility to our customers. We will do this, we will make this happen by engaging with all of you in a spirit of trust. And most importantly, we will grow together.
SCG International, trusted international business partner.
Electricity never ceases to flow.
electricity is everywhere. Providing reliable electrical energy for our country is the main mission of the Electricity Generating Authority of Thailand, or EGAT, no matter how high or how deep we have to go. EGAT will bring electricity for the sake of the country and the Thai people. Under the vision, Innovate Power Solutions for a Better Life, EGAT generates electricity with reasonable fuel management. This creates a balance between stability, price, and environmental care. Additionally, EGAT purchases electricity from independent power producers, small power producers, and from neighbouring countries. Electricity is transmitted via the EGAT power transmission grid that stretches across the country to electricity distributors to meet the demand of each sector. EGAT also sells electricity to neighbouring countries to create power system stability for the region. EGAT aims to increase the organisation's capability through research and innovative development of electricity generation. To support future needs, electricity generation is conducted with a hybrid system. In addition, the Battery Energy Storage System, or BESS, that supports grid modernisation also allows EGAT to access the international renewable energy market. The National Control Centre, or NCC, and the Renewable Energy Control Centre help manage renewable energy effectively. Security of the electricity system is prioritised for both the present and future needs of renewable energy, in accordance with the government's policy and power development plan. EGAT uses its organisational assets to conduct electrical industry businesses. And undertakes investments that help strengthen the power system. EGAT Innovation Holding Company Limited was established to efficiently conduct business relating to electrical innovation. EGAT helps create a high-quality society by sharing knowledge with the community. For a sustainable community. Walks side by side with the Thai people. And protects the environment with consciousness and technology. EGAT operates under good governance principles and core values. The night sky is charming, yet it emphasises the importance of electricity. EGAT promises that Thailand's electricity system will always be secure, stable and reliable. EGAT has driven itself into a century of innovation, generating sustainable and eco-friendly electricity. EGAT, power for Thai happiness.
Electricity does not only refer to light from a bulb, but it also implies to hope, happiness, and good quality of life, brightening up all hearts of customers. Therefore, the emerging of electricity generation in Thailand has evidently changed the people's lifestyles. In 1884 to 1960, initial stage of power supply in Thailand and PEA establishment. During the reign of King Chulalongkorn, King Rama V, electricity was introduced to Thailand in 1884 by Field Marshal Japhraya Surasak Montri Cherm Sang Chuto when holding the title of Jamun Waiwaranat. Provincial Electricity Affairs was inaugurated after the establishment of Electricity Section under Public Health Department, the Ministry of Interior. A power plant was later constructed in Nakhon Pathom municipality and started its operation in 1930, followed by the establishment of Provincial Electricity Organization. The power supply was expanded to provincial areas and it stimulated local development. More and more power plants were constructed in districts and provinces. Recognizing the necessity of electricity expansion and good governance, the government established Provincial Electricity Authority, PEA, on 28 September 1960. From 1960 to 1980, construction of power plants in provincial areas. At first, PEA's headquarters office was initially located on Rama 6 Road alongside Samsen Irrigation Canal and then moved to Ngam Wong Wan Road in Bang Khen District, Phrat Nakhon Province. The inauguration was held on 28 September 1971. Regarding the infrastructure development in Thailand, PEA had developed electricity generation systems under the National Economic and Social Development Plan 1 and 2. The generation system was an uphill mission at that time. PEA encountered considerable difficulties, including the expenses of machine installation and operation, the electrical distribution to various locations, the procurement of electric generators, the mechanic recruitment for installation, as well as the transportation of machines, electricity utility poles and electrical wires to some rural areas at which physical labor and small vehicle were necessary. The rapid growth of electricity demand became the PEA's motivation in transmitting electricity to every household in order to improve living conditions of people throughout the country. As a result, PEA formulated a master plan for power supply development in provincial areas. In responding to the increasing electricity demand, this has continuously encouraged development of electric power transmission to Thailand's remote areas. In 1981 to 1990, electricity system quality improvement to enhance business and industrial development. Power supply became the significant part of infrastructure and had an important role for the national progress in all aspects. Thus, PEA implemented the electrical distribution system to enhance the generating capability and to support electricity expansion. Diesel engine power plants were closed due to high cost but low efficiency. Electric current was instead transmitted from Electricity Generating Authority of Thailand, EGAT. As for the people living on the island, PEA laid down submarine cables for the first time in Thailand. From Khanom Electricity Substation to Got Samui, people there had enough energy to use since then. Furthermore, PEA began energy collecting from renewable resources, including hydropower and solar energy, to generate and transmit electricity to remote locations. Some energy was sent to the PEA's commercial operation to strengthen the stability of power system. Additionally, PEA employed advanced technology and efficient machinery to improve the operational system in order to offer excellent service and satisfy all customers. In 1991 to 2000, application of high technology to reach international service standard. PEA applied high technology to raise the power transmission and distribution standards. In responding to the growing demand in businesses and industrial sectors, PEA improved power supply efficiency with a better distribution system of 115 kilovolt power station. Modern technology was employed to manage electricity distribution system. Supervisory control and data acquisition, SCADA, was adopted to automatically control electricity distribution. PEA was eventually able to carry out maintenance without power failure to increase efficiency of power distribution to industrial sector. In 2001 to 2010, organization development to international standard in energy business. The rapid progress of science and technology was the deciding factor to determine the direction of structure and mission development, as well as personnel potential development and the resource management for maximum efficiency. PEA built in every field of work in order to form learning society and foster persistent development of organization, getting ready for the international level with our modern technology for high efficiency of electric power distribution and our good service. The ISO 9002 guideline was also applied to the whole organization for quality assurance. In 2011 to 2020, a journey to digital utility. Regarding the concept of customer-centric services, PEA provides a positive customer experience with easy and quick service everywhere. The organization has changed some CSR business strategies to CSV, creating shared value, and operating to satisfy stakeholders' demands in order to become a sustainable business. Aiming for an excellent organization in the electric power industry, PEA improves efficiency of every working system, fulfills expectations of customers, and manages the organization according to good governance principles. Move forward with human resource, digital technology, and innovation. Let's create shared value to society and environment with digital technology and go on a journey to digital utility. PEA.